Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host, usually with Tyler, obviously, doing a quick little solo video for you guys today. When you're watching this, I will be probably on a plane to London with my wife, Brooke. Very excited for a vacation, but wanted to crank out a couple solo videos as well. There's just so many things that I feel like we need to touch on before the draft and unfortunately this vacation, which is great timing for me and Brooke. Not super great timing for the podcast, but this is the first time Brooke and I have had matching spring breaks since we've both been working our full-time jobs in education. Our spring breaks are always different, and so that usually kind of limits us to traveling here locally, but it matched up this time and we decided to take advantage. So we're going to London. We'll do a few days in Scotland as well. I'll be checking comments and things like that, Twitter, obviously. So feel free and message me if you have any suggestions for places to eat, things to do. Most of our itinerary is pretty set, but this will be my first solo video to kind of fill the gap here. So I wanted to touch on our safest prospects video. And hand up here. This is where I'll be taking kind of a professional mulligan. And you might be wondering, it's not that big of a deal. It was just a safest prospect video. Like, what's going on? But I put a lot of time and effort into researching these prospects and watching these prospects and making sure I have kind of all my I's dotted, T's crossed before I really like talk about them. And so I felt like it was important for me to hop on here and kind of address a certain situation. And also, I'm going to give you guys two new ones here to kind of make up for my mistake here. So this was kind of addressed on the show, but really, this is just I want to take some accountability and acknowledge that I should have put more research into this particular prospect. And frankly, he probably should have been on our riskiest prospect show, even though I do really like the film grade. So without further ado, that is Mr. Tate Ratledge, the interior offensive lineman from Georgia. Again, I still think there is a lot to like when it comes to his film evaluation, when it comes to his athletic profile. But the injury concerns went much deeper than I initially thought. I knew about the tightrope surgery, and I knew that there was like some other minor things, but it turns out it was a lot more significant than that. So he did have the tightrope surgery on his left ankle. And when he got injured, he also sprained his knee at the same time. It was an MCL sprain. And both of those injuries, even though he had surgery on the ankle, those injuries did kind of limit his ability to finish the season productively. And he did ultimately come back. But two injuries at the same time, never a good sign. In 2023, he missed the season finale and Georgia's bowl game with a similar left ankle injury that did not require surgery. And obviously, in college football, the end of the season and the bowl game are very far apart. So the fact that he was not able to play in the bowl game means he would have missed the equivalent of 4 or 5 games, depending on when he would exactly be back. So again, not great. He did start and finish 14 of 15 games in 2022, which is fantastic. Love to see it. In 2021, he entered the season as the starting left guard, had a Lisfranc injury in week 1, and missed the entire season. There was also a high school ACL tear. So this is, again, I know that it might not seem like a big deal to some of you guys, but I needed to come on here and take accountability. Hand up, my mistake. I should have known about this kind of stuff. I should have put more research into it. There are some times where you just get clouded by a player who you really like. And so Tate Ratledge, there's a lot of good stuff here on tape. There's a lot of good stuff, when it comes to his athletic background. And Duke Manyweather did say on Twitter today, I'm recording this on Sunday, April 6th. Duke Manyweather said today that there are teams that are very, very high on Tate Ratledge and that he expects him to go within the top 60. So he thinks that he should be, a second round kind of pick. Dane Brugler has said a similar sentiment when it comes to Tate Ratledge. So this might not mean anything. Teams might not actually care. According to those two individuals, they don't. But when we have certain criteria that we are kind of looking at when it comes to risk for prospects, Tate Ratledge probably should have been on our risky video, and instead I put him on our safe video, and so that is why we are here today. So hopefully you guys will accept my mistake and my apology for not being better here. All right, that being said, I'm going to put Miles Frazier officially in his place, the interior offensive lineman from LSU. We've talked about him a few times, but want to kind of get into everything here. He has an 8.58 RAS right now. He did not do agility testing, but above average there overall for what he did put out in the testing. Why I'm going to have him here, I've talked about this a few times, but he started 11 of 11 possible games at Florida International at left tackle. His first season there, he started a couple of games at right tackle. His first year at LSU, he started all 13 games, and same with the second year and same with his past year. So of the last 4 seasons of his college tape, he started and finished every single game that he played in. And he has at least one start in his college career. That should say 4 of 5 positions. I don't know why that did it like that. He has one start at right guard, or a bunch of starts at right guard, excuse me, bunch of starts at left tackle, a bunch of starts at left guard, and one start at right tackle, I believe. So he's somebody who has already shown that he is incredibly versatile in college, and that's going to really, really help his stock when it comes to how he stacks up with some of these other players who have only played one position. Like Tate Ratledge has only played left guard. Tyler Booker has only played left guard. Not to say that Tyler, like he's going to be in that kind of range. Donovan Jackson has a little bit more versatility to him, but Miles Frazier has played the most snaps at various positions of any offensive lineman in this class, and I think that is something that he can really use to his advantage, and I think allows him to be more safe, because a lot of these times these swing offensive linemen, these backup offensive linemen, are not truly able to be swing offensive linemen. Like we've seen this with Jamari Sawyer, right? He's not as comfortable movement wise at right guard as he is at left tackle for whatever reason. Trey Pipkins is comfortable on the right side, but is not really comfortable on the left side. So somebody like Miles Frazier that has various starts at various positions, that is going to really help him hit in the NFL. Maybe that doesn't mean he becomes a high-end starter, but that versatility allows him to be, at worst, a high-end backup, and that to me qualifies as safe. When it comes to his film notes, I think the first thing that you notice is his violent and powerful striking ability. This is somebody who has really large hands, long arms, and has the mentality to go after it when it comes to creating movement as a pass protector, creating movement as a run blocker. His ability to fire off the football and run protection, his ability to quick set, jump set, and get his hands on rushers early is really, really tremendous. He knows how to use his length. He knows how to use his strike to his advantage. When it comes to the run blocking, he is consistently driving his feet through the whistle. This is somebody who has that mentality where he is going to consistently chop those feet all the way up until the whistle, not in a dirty way like a Trevor Penning, but when it comes to finishing blocks, Miles Frazier has a tremendous, check box kind of next to his name in this category, because he is always going to play through the whistle in a very clean and efficient way. The first thing that I think I noticed as a pass protector outside of the strike is that his awareness and patience is truly outstanding when it comes to stunts. His ability to process is, I think, the best in this class of any offensive lineman. When it comes to handling stunts, when it comes to identifying stunts, he is always looking for work. I tweeted this clip out when I first saw it. There's actually a play, I want to say against Ole Miss, where he handles a stunt going across his face, and then Ole Miss has a looper like all the way around, and Miles Frazier is able to detach there and come across and get the second looper as well. So he gets a 2-for-1 on a stunt that Ole Miss got a lot of people on with sacks with Walter Nolan and all those guys. And Miles Frazier consistently handles that. He's consistently looking for work. He's consistently identifying stunts. And one little thing that I think helps guards is really, like, if there is an edge rusher who does an inside spin move, is the guard able to notice that and get there early enough? because that's a very common counter in college. It's a very common counter in the NFL as well. Um, can you get there? Do you have the range to worst sliding left? I noticed the outside spin, and I'm going to get there. Very few offensive linemen that I have studied this year have that kind of awareness to get there, and Miles Frazier has that awareness. So he is mentally an extremely high level offensive lineman. I think there are some teams that have said he could maybe play center because of that. I do think he's big enough and strong enough to play guard. Um, but considering he has starts at 4 of the other 5 positions, I'm not going to put it past him to play center. Um, my biggest concerns with him, first and foremost, his pad level does get a little high at times. He is a taller guy, so he's 6'5". When it comes to playing against smaller, shorter defensive tackles, there are some leverage issues here. So somebody like Puna Ford, granted, he gave a lot of people a lot of issues, right? But like that kind of type where it's a smaller defensive tackle who can get into his chest faster, does give him some kind of problems. And as a crash down blocker, he can get a little high at times. So there is that thing. And then his lack of agility testing, I think, does play on tape. I do think he has a little bit of issues with getting from, I'm down blocking here and I need to detach to a linebacker. He's kind of unable to get off of blocks quickly that way. So as long as he has some space in between, he's able to process. Like his brain truly is, like, I think, his best asset. He can get there, but when it comes to those instant quick decisions where he has to detach and get off, I think he is a little slower there. And then there were some times as a puller where I didn't love like how long it took him to get going. So there are some athletic concerns, even though he didn't test, poorly in the categories that he did test in. So some minor things there. He's consistently on the board in like 6 rounds. I think that's ridiculous that he is not going in mock drafts in like the 3rd round. This is a 3rd round player all day to me. And I think worst case scenario for the Chargers is you draft him and he's your Jamari Saleh replacement, where he's just your backup swing. And obviously that's not ideal in the 3rd round, but like I said, worst case scenario for me is that. I told you I was going to add a second one here. The second one I'm going to add is Mr. Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. So I am putting 2 Ohio State defensive linemen on my list. Obviously, I had JT Tui Molau from the edge rusher room in our other video here. So I'm going to add Tyleik as well. We don't have really any testing. Unfortunately, he did fall and get injured during his 40 time, which is what Ohio State had their guys do first. He allegedly says that he was going to run in the 4.9 range in his training. And considering he's 330 pounds, that would be incredibly impressive. I don't know if I buy that, but I do think he is a good athlete. I'm not expecting him would not expect him to test poorly by any means. When it comes to some of his statistics, there's combined 18 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks, 6 batted passes the last 2 seasons. So that last part is something we've talked a lot about with Kenneth Grant, who's very good at that. Tyleik is also very good at that. So very aware player to get his hands up at the right times and bat passes down, I think, is a real strength of his. And since he doesn't really have a ton of pass rush juice, if you can bat some passes down, that does kind of like, it's not a sack, right? But it is a stop. And I think that does help you, elevate your floor here. He had the 13th highest run defense grade of the defensive tackles this past season. It was actually like 2nd in 2023. So, Ohio State did kind of change the scheme up a little bit from last year to this year, where last year it was a little bit more aggressive. You could be a little bit more gap shooter-ish. This year, they asked him to 2-gap a lot, and it did, kind of follow up with a decrease in production, but the run defense grade and the film is still very, very high level. 16 run stops, 7.6 run stop percentage in 2024. He had 24 run stops in 2023. So this is somebody who has a legitimate track record as a productive run stopper. And even though this was his true first season as a 2-gap kind of style, I think he's the best in the class at that regard. I think he anchors down against double teams better than any other defensive tackle in the class, and that includes Kenneth Grant, who I think I would describe as kind of a work in progress there. He consistently sets the line of scrimmage better than any other defensive tackle in this class. Like, he's not the longest player in the class, but I think he uses his size and his get off at a really, really high rate where he can consistently be disruptive and set the line of scrimmage. So I mentioned 2023. I went back and watched, and his ability to shoot gaps at that size is pretty impressive. You know, he does get some opportunities to win behind the line of scrimmage and in one-on-one opportunities, and he excels in that regard. So there was a little bit more flexibility for him in 2023 where he could kind of play, you know, as a 3 tech or a 4-eye a little bit, you know, kind of like against guards and tackles. And then this year it was mostly in the A gap, mostly as a 0 or a 1 technique. And that did kind of, I think, lead to some of the lack of production as well. So there's not a ton of pass rushers, like I mentioned. He only has the 32-inch arms, and I think that can limit him a little bit in both facets. But frankly, his ability to anchor and control the line of scrimmage is the best in the class. I think I would say CJ West is maybe second in that regard. I think Derek Harmon out of Michigan State at his tape there flashed the ability to do that. I think actually Mason Graham can do that quite well. But Tyleik is the best run defending defensive tackle in the class. And I question the kind of value of where you would take him. You know, there's consistently mock drafts where I see him going in like the mid 30s to 40s. If you're not going to offer a ton of pass rush juice, I think you're probably better suited for the 40s, 50s, 60s than in the 30s. You know, high second round pick usually is not a run stuffing defensive tackle. But if the Chargers took him at 55, if he were available there, I think we all can agree that they need a pass rush juice kind of player. But if you can get Tyleik Williams to be your nose tackle, Tier Tart can kind of stay in his 3 tech kind of role, and maybe that leads to more pass rush production that way. Maybe Justin Eboigbe can hit and help you there. I could see a world where this works. You know, part of the reason why we are advocating for a round 1 or 2 defensive tackle is just frankly to get some high upside into the room. Right now, they have kind of a collection of misfits, right? So even though Tyleik Williams isn't like the cleanest fit for what I would want, I would understand why the Chargers would potentially draft him at 55 if he does fall that far. Just because they need some blue chip potential in there, and even if that is blue chip run defender and not pass rusher, I think the Chargers should at least consider it. So this is Tyleik Williams. I'm a big fan of his. When I first watched him and Kenneth Grant, I actually had Tyleik Williams higher, and then I kind of started diving into more of the traits and athletic upside of Kenneth Grant, and just kind of weighed his potential as a pass rusher much higher. Even though I do think Tyleik Williams is right now a better player, I think I settled in with Kenneth Grant as a better prospect because of that higher athletic upside. So Tyleik Williams, still a very good player, still would understand drafting him, you know, in the 40 to 50 range. And for the Chargers who do need a defensive tackle help, I think they could take him and figure out pass rush in some other way. All right. That is going to do it for me. Appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this little mulligan, and we'll see you next time. This has been another mini episode, I should say, of the Guilty as Charged podcast. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up.